Hello, everyone. I would like to admit mistakes. I'm not going to apologize. In the course of doing work, you make mistakes, and apologizing for everyone's kind of silly. As a programmer, I make mistakes every day, and if I apologized for all of them, it would imply some sort of maliciousness, which isn't the case. I'm a process driven person, and part of the process comes down to basically admitting that you don't know exactly how everything is. And once you work forward with that, then it's not a big deal, right? Big bangers, I'm giving you an opportunity to admit mistakes. I'm giving you an opportunity to admit that even though evidence was working against your theory, you continued to push it like it was facts. That doesn't feel like it's part of the process. That actually feels a lot more malicious. And I know everything's a field. And I know one of the artifacts of everything being a field is that you have a moving the goalpost bias. If you can squint just right, the thing that you strongly believed in will reinforce over anything else. And so when I go to someone who knows a lot of physics, or thinks they know a lot of physics at least, then they are going to be they're entrenched there, right? So they got this little pathway. The pathway is self-reinforcing, and this new information is coming in, and it's trying to mess that up. And I would imagine there's probably a mechanism biologically that results in anger when you see that as this cognitive dissonance. And perhaps the reason for that is that maybe if you just believed everything someone told you or that you saw and didn't try to filter out the good and the bad, you would never make progress. Maybe you learned it as a child. Maybe it all stems down to the twitching that you do as a baby. Either way, I've easily made like 90 mistakes while doing this research. And I didn't keep track of how many mistakes I made, so now 91. But also, that would have been really stupid and a big waste of my time, and no one cares. So we're back to 90. In my first video, I talked about how energy displaces space-time. And in my description of this theory, that's just how I described it. And everything aligns with that. However, after thinking more about how fields really work, because this is a rapidly moving theory, and I work very fast, and thinking about how there must be a tessellation of smaller energy that is the field itself, it occurred to me that these displacement things might not even be like part of space-time. Space-time is almost like this unnecessary construct to the whole thing. You really just have energy. Energy has a repulsive property, and that repulsive property seems to come out from almost a paradox. It comes out from the field, but the field is made of energy. So, I mean, you just keep going. I guess that's a true fractal, right? But either way, I was exploring behavior last night and noted that I had a bug. And what I found interesting is that despite the bug, I was still seeing things that resembled the universe, things in the universe. You know, the videos that you've seen, they all had the same bug. And so that had me thinking, yeah, that makes sense. You know, think of things from kind of a God level. You don't know the right answer. So you come up with a system where you just try every permutation. So even with the bug and the math being kind of wrong, things still vaguely uh, resembled how it works. But my mental model didn't really fit this idea then, because essentially what happened is that I realized there was a potential for these fields to propagate ahead of themselves. And I was trying to think how that was possible, because I was thinking of displacing space-time, but if you're propagating ahead of yourself, that is not displacing it, right? Um, for lack of a better analogy, it's like pushing a magnet with a magnet, right? And to me, I viewed that as all just part of the natural displacement. And I guess under the scenes it is, um, because it stems from the field, and the field is full of energy. um, but it made me also realize that space-time was this unnecessary construct. So like space-time doesn't have this the shape of space-time comes from energy. Space-time isn't really much of a thing. You have just the energy, and it see, now maybe I made another mistake here. Maybe I was right the first time. It's very difficult to wrap your head around something that is self referencing, which is what this is. Um, so, either way, I don't think it's a good idea to say, hey, that's what I was saying the whole time, right? It wasn't. I had a wrong model in my head, and I was just kind of lucky. So I want to set a good precedent here, because this is going to come up a lot as people start to realize this is how things really work. Um, yeah, I had the wrong model, and I think now that I look at it better, my description was not quite reflecting how I was thinking of it. Even if the description, the exact words still work. So I just wanted to call that out. And thank you for watching.